All right, welcome Divya, welcome Upasana for our first Mentor Mantra session of 2025. We are very excited. STEM Pairs is very happy and appreciate both of you for sharing your time with the community and open to sharing your experience about K99 awards and the whole journey or how it is done, what are the requirements. So thank you from on behalf of STEM peers community. There are a few people. I would like to start by asking Divya to share her introduction, give her introduction because I also have very uh, little information about both of your backgrounds. So Divya, if we can start with you, if you can give a brief introduction about you, that would be great.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks for having us today here. I think we are happier than you guys are, and being here and giving back because I mean, I learned so much from STEM peers. I've been a part of it since COVID. So I think, yeah, I'm really happy to be here and doing my part here. So I did my bachelor's, master's, and PhD in India. I was in Indian Institute of Science, where I did my PhD under Dr. Tatu in Department of Biochemistry, and my field has always been infectious diseases. So I'm pretty happy that I got to stick with it, and I didn't have to jump around a lot because it kind of gave me time to go into the depth of it. And then I moved here to Cornell lab in New York. Unfortunately, the lab was not well suited to how my style of working was. And I mean, you'll see a lot of my posts on STEM peers when I was going through that phase. And thankfully, I could change my lab. And then I came to New York Blood Center, which is much smaller institute. It's like a non-profit organization, much like Red Cross Society, which is, I guess, more famous in the West Coast. So New York Blood Center basically owns a lot of blood, like it's like a blood bank where people come donate blood, etc. And that's fine. That's a baby, I think. I and they have like a research wing. So that's where I was, I was there, and my mentor was Cheryl Lobo, and yeah, she was amazing. So I think that was the primary reason why I joined the lab. So in 2023, that was when I was around 2.5 years into my postdoc. We decided, okay, let us, apply for a K99. I mean, no one had heard about it in my institute because, like I said, it was a very small, like the research wing is very small. So, but we thought, okay, let's take a chance. Let's see how it goes. And I applied in 2023 June. So in 2023 January, I started thinking about it, like thinking of my project and so I would say the writing time took me almost like 4 weeks of very dedicated time. And the thinking part was more like very organic, like 4 to 6 months. I was thinking, talking with my PI, making sure that whatever I propose in my K99 is a clear segregation from what she is doing in her lab so that there's no overlap, there's no conflict of interest going forward.
Okay.
So in June 2023 is when I applied. And
Okay.
then I got my score back in November. And so basically, in a K, you can apply 3 times in a year. So I could not apply in December because it was pretty late. And then
Okay.
I had to reapply in February, and we can go up, on that later. But yeah,
Okay.
that's my background. So, infectious diseases, my institute was NIAID. And yes, and I'm still in infectious disease, and that's where I want to go forward with.
Awesome.
So, yes.
Awesome.
So I guess now Upasana can take over.
Yeah. Go ahead, Upasna. Did I say that right, Upasna? Okay.
Um, Hi, everyone, and thank you again for the invitation. Yes, as Divya said, we're happy to give our opinion and whatever we have gained so far. So, my background is I moved out of India after my bachelor's, and I did my master's from UK. Then I moved to Germany for my PhD in Max Delbruck, and that was in cancer signaling and biology, like molecular cell biology. But it was a joint program, so I got a Marie Curie fellowship. So that took me to let me choose another lab. So I had to have two labs, and I chose Israel as another lab. And ultimately, Israel Hebrew University became my home lab. but I was always swinging in and out from Germany and Israel. I finished my PhD in like 5 years with an EMBO fellowship. So that EMBO fellowship took me for a postdoctoral. So usually EMBO fellowship is for 2 years for the postdoc. And with that, I started my postdoc here in Reagan Institute. It's called Reagan Institute of MIT, Harvard, and MGH. It is basically under Mass General Hospital and also affiliated to Harvard Med School. And I also have another co-mentor who is in the Koch Institute of MIT. So that's where my postdoc. I basically am interested in mucosal immunology. I am trained as an immunologist and also as stem cell biologist. So that's my background. And so I applied for my K99 on 2022. And as Divya said, you can apply K99 3 times in a year, but with the same project, you can only apply twice. And the third time, if you apply, you have to apply it as a new. We can go in details with that. So I applied. My first K99 was not discussed, but then my second resubmission was like a very good score. And it got funded in 2024. So I started in 2024 February, and now I'm in my second year of K99. Yeah, okay. So we can jump into the questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you for that very precise, summarized introduction. That was very helpful. So both of you, Upasana, let's continue talking with you. Can you tell us what is K99 and who are eligible for K99?
Yeah, sure. So K99, as far as it is a K award. Any K awards from NIH are pretty much like a Young Investigator Award to a pathway. So K99 particularly is a pathway to independence. That means that postdocs who are almost ready, but not super ready, like almost ready to launch themselves, can apply for K99. It comes with a package called K99/R00. So the K99 is a 2 years. You can spend as a mentored phase as a postdoc in your postdoctoral lab. And then once you get a faculty position, you can then get your R00 started from the NIH, from whichever institute you are getting your K from. It is pretty much applicable or eligible for everyone. So as internationals, that's like the one. I think it's the only one which we can apply. So that's where it's the bottleneck of this thing, that it is pretty competitive. And also it is considered one of the most prestigious one. So yeah, that's K99. I mean, Divya can add up more.
Yes, Divya, go ahead. You want to add anything?
So I think the advantage that K99 would give you when you're launching yourself as a faculty position is that you already get money when you move to your faculty positions. It's not like you're dependent on money from what you're going to get from the institute or the grants that you will apply. But it's like 2 years of K99 and 2 years of ROO. Again, different institutes have different. I know like NHLBI has like 2+3, but NIAID, like my institute, which is infectious diseases, has 2 years of K99. So 2 years it pays my salary as a postdoc, and then for the next 2 years it gives me some amount of money to start my initial experiments and to kind of help set up my lab. So when so what I hear from people is that when you apply for a faculty job, it's already advantageous when you're getting money to the institute rather than when you are coming with empty handed and you are going to apply for it. And it gives kind of a confidence to the hiring institute that okay, this person has written a grant, knows how to write a grant. So I think that's one of the biggest advantages of K99 is that when you're launching yourself, there is more confidence instigated in you by the hiring institute.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes,
as Divya said, it's actually like pretty much 2+3. I think only some institute has 2+2. Majority it is 2+3. So my K99 is from NIDDK. So it's 2+3. The R00 is for 3 years. However, there is like a little tiny thing. It is considered as like an R01, like an early R01, the R00, but it's not a huge amount of money. It's like 250K. It is capped for 250K throughout all institutes. So yeah, as Divya was mentioning, this is definitely very prestigious. Institutes know that you have the ability to write a grant and you have written a grant, like an extramural funding.
Mhm.
as an example. But many schools, depending on where you are applying for your faculty positions, like in the East Coast and the West Coast, if you're thinking of Ivy League schools, then it really is not very much. Like it takes you up into your how do I say, like your interview process, but
Mhm.
it is not adding to something like, okay, we have to take. However, on the contrary, schools like Midwest schools would actually take you on the basis of K99. Like
Wow.
no, not last year, this fall, when I started applying, so schools have been scouted. Like, so they look into the different institutes of K99 awardees. Like, let's
Wow.
say U Chicago Immunology Infectious Diseases hiring, they would look up to NIAID's K99 list and they will scout you. So I got scouted from Midwest schools. But on the other hand, like East Coast, like Cornell or like Harvard, Yale, they really they value you, but they don't care much. So that's like something you have to remember. This is like the tiny, like, you have to think of the negative and the pessimist part also. Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, thank you for that. So let me put it in only one sentence. K99 puts you on this overlapping path where you have mentored 2 years as a postdoc, and then you have next 3 years as a own
Non-mentored.
faculty. Yeah,
Yes.
perfect. So this puts you in a very excellent like direction where you can transition out of postdoc and become independent faculty.
Yes.
Then that's why it is called K99 Independence Award. Great. So
Yeah.
who who is eligible for this K99, and when should someone start thinking about applying for K99? Mm,
I
Can
think
you
when
can you talk
Divya and
about
me
that?
both applied, it was within 4 years from your graduation. So let's say you finished your graduation 2019, you
Hmm.
have 21, 22, 23. 23 is your first, like you should apply by 2023. Now, if you, in 2023, if you got a revision and they want to revise, that's fine. You are at least in the pool. But with revised also, you should be awarded within 4 years. However, just this year, people are lucky, you got it 6 years from your PhD. So now it's 6 years
Not
from your
6 years.
graduation. Yes.
Wow,
Oh,
So
that's
really?
if
I
it's
great.
didn't know about that.
2019, it was your
Awesome.
graduation, then it
Awesome.
is, yeah, 2025,
And
26.
can you tell if there's because I remember when I was a postdoc, uh, there was some wiggle room there for like especially for women candidates if they have taken some break for family or
Yes.
So
if
I
there is
think, yeah,
something.
like for
Is it still
maternity,
there?
you're right.
Is it
Yeah,
still
for
there?
maternity, they give you 1 year, but if you have
Okay.
2 children, you still get 1 year. So it's
Okay.
like
Yeah. And
depending
even
on,
paternity.
yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah. So
there's
it's not only maternity, it's also
Oh,
paternity.
wow. Okay, I didn't know about that.
Yeah,
Okay.
remember that. It's also paternity. And you should make sure. So these are the underwritten rules. Nowhere it is written. NIH websites are pretty much clear, but these rules are not. But it is also for paternity and any kind of life event, actually. So let's
okay.
say if you have something like some death or some, so any life event, basically, yeah, it will, but not someone getting sick. Sickness doesn't change anything. So
Okay.
that's something you get. And it's fixed to 1 year. Yes. Doesn't matter
Great.
you have one kid or two kid.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Good to
And some
know.
people got COVID extension. Like
Yes.
there were some lucky people who also got COVID extension. But again, now it's not a thing anymore. So yeah.
So would
Yes,
you
when
say
I was applying, even though my lab was closed during COVID, like for 4 months or something, I did not get that extension.
Same, me
I
too.
was told
I
that I
asked
would
my
not get
PO
that.
and
Yeah.
it's like, no. Yeah, I think it was also very PO dependent and also institute dependent. Like
Mhm.
just few months before, like I had friends who got COVID extension, but I did not get the COVID extension. Already it was like 1 year in COVID. So
Okay.
yeah, it depends. But
So
yeah,
who
it's
who
fine.
do you ask this at the like? Is there
Yes,
a
that's a very, very
PO?
important
There is
question.
a
Yep.
like
So I don't know
someone
how
at
many
NIH.
people who are here are aware of NIH, how NIH works. So there is something called PO, Program Officer. Every institute has several program officers. You can write to randomly any one, and you should talk to the program officer ahead of time. For me, my research is also in HIV, so I had also an opportunity to look for NIAID. So I basically, my first submission was both NIAID and primary NIDDK. And then depending on your PO, you can let them know that which one you finally choose. So you can always apply for 2 institutes and then choose ultimately one. But you can only make budget according to one institute.
Okay.
So we will go on that later, but you should reach out to the program officer ahead of time. In fact, discuss your science, what you want to do, and if it's a good fit for that. Sometimes PO can tell you, hey, this is not a great fit for this, or this will be capped on the study section. You should reach out to that particular institute because it's more general science. So then you reach out to another PO of another NIDD, like NIH institute.
Great.
The question here is when you should apply, and you, I think, raised the question before. As Divya said, it is really a heavily invested work. So I always have heard that 6 months is a good time to start your whole preparation. It's a huge list of things, not only science, it also comes with your candidate package. So that part is a lot. So 6 months is a good time to, start your process. And in fact, the moment you start your postdoc in a year or so, you should know what is your field of interest and what are you planning to launch yourself into. That way, it is not like any grant, like R01 grant or something. Here, the candidate part is more important than your science part, actually.
Okay.
So you have to present yourself how you are ready as a candidate. Why should we give you the Independence Fellowship?
Great.
So science is important, but the other part is more.
I think the important one more important thing is adding to Pasna's thing is you have to have mentor. Of course, your primary mentor is going to be a postdoc boss, but then you also are given a choice to have co-mentors and an advisory council. So you can have up to of course different institutes again might have different, but for NIAID I had I could choose up to 2 more co-mentors and 3 people on the advisory council, and you have to have 5 referees. And all of them have to be mutually exclusive. You cannot have a referee who's also on your advisory council. So basically, you need to reach out to a lot of people and ask them if they would be okay to, submit a recommendation, etc. So, you really have to start ahead of time. Ask people if they can be your co-mentor, check, that's a lot of, going back and forth, with people, because sometimes, PIs reply, sometimes they don't reply. And so you really have to be on top of it. So that's why I think like she said, 6 months is you really need to start getting your things together 6 months before you want to apply. And and I always feel it's better to apply 1 year ahead of when you are going to lose your eligibility, because it takes time. For example, for me also, I started in 2023 June, and I finally got my thing in 2024 December. So it was almost 16 months, 18 months that it took for the entire thing to happen. So yeah, and because these things when your scores are going to come back and what your comments are going to be, that's not in your hands. So you have to really have everything started much ahead of what you think you should. Don't delay. That's what, don't procrastinate. Just start even when you think you are even 70% ready. I think you should start.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great. So that kind of brings me to our next question. Now that you mentioned that how once you have planned this, you have prepared this, now you are ready with your proposal, and you have talked with the PO at your respective institute, you have put together your application, and now it is submitted to NIH. Now what happens? What does happen then? Where does it go? How it is scored? How it is reviewed, what is looked at, and what gets more better score. Can you both talk about that? It doesn't have to be specific to you. You can talk in general. What you don't need to deal.
Pasna, you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay. So you said what happens after. So after you submit, the first thing is there are. So okay, let's go back a little bit. So there are 3 time points in a year. It's March, June, October.
Okay.
March, June, October is any NIH grants submission date. Most RFAs will be called in for those dates, except if you're applying for HIV associated projects, then it's a 1 month earlier. So for March, the HIV submission will be February. For June, the HIV submission will be 1 month before. Similar like October, it will be September. Okay. That's something who are in HIV or anything, they should remember that. But once you submit, you have a NIH list, like whichever institute you submitted, you can see when is the study section is going to happen. So the study section, what it does is it sits in a round table and it discusses. But before the study section, they have already chosen your 3 reviewers. Every NIH grant gets a 3 reviewer, including our case. So 3 reviewers have already been looking at and scoring. So we'll come to the scoring system, but have given a score. And the score is basically in 10. So the lowest the score, the best it is. And the higher it is not good. Okay. So, and then what happens after the 3 reviewers put their individual scores on the study section day, it's like a 12 hours, 6 to 12 hours whole day. They book it in NIH in one of the rooms. And they sit, and there will be many other reviewers, and they vote. So each of the reviewer can also get a voter who can say, hey, I agree to reviewer 1, or they can refute also the reviewer. And then your score gets like more diluted or more concentrated depending on the voters who is in the round table. Now, how the score works is if there are 5 sections of scoring, I'm thinking 1 is candidate, 1 is research, vigor, and I think institution background. And the 5th one I'm forgetting. I think
mentored
Divya,
also.
can you remember?
Your mentor, co-mentor.
Mentored also. Yes, mentored. Yeah, mentored. Yeah, those are the 5. And you get scored up on these 5 things. So see, your research is not the only thing you are getting scored. There are so many things. So more or less, let's say mentor and institution, you are tied because that's not something you can change. Your mentors are your mentors. Whatever their bio sketch looks, they get scored on that. Your institution is already fixed. So your institution gets the score according to the reputation. So that also you cannot change. Now, what you can change is your scientific rigor, which is like the achievement possibilities and how you have written that. The 3rd and the 4th is like your candidate, like how you yourself is a candidate. So you see your bigger things are on this, like you can get a great score on this because you can change this course. And then what is the 5th one? What was the 5th one? There's something else.
Research, candidate, institute,
Mentors.
mentor, and yeah, I think that's it,
I
right?
have to pull up my I have
Vigor.
to pull up my see. Okay, we can pull up those and see exactly what are those. But anyways, you have 5 sections and you get a score, and then the score will be like an average of whatever
Okay. So
they think or they. So the lowest the score is the best. 1 is the highest score.
so bottom line is it's a overview of everything. It's not just you focused on one part of all of that 5. You need to focus on all these 5. Some of the 5, like mentor and institute, those are not in your hand, but maybe mentors are a little bit, you can choose which mentors, but depending on who responds to and who's ready to mentor you, that
No, but your
that
mentor is already your postdoctoral mentor. You
Yeah,
cannot
you can have co-mentors, but your primary
Co-mentors.
mentor is fixed.
Okay, great. So those
Exactly.
2 are fixed. So you need to work on the remaining 3 to make it more
Yes.
achievable.
Actually, your advisors are not true. So advisors, which Divya mentioned before, is basically you make your K99 part more stronger by choosing your advisory committee. Your advisory committee are not judged. Reference most K99 would also put a value on your references, but somehow they are not, part of the quantifiable or not scoreable. But they do put a value on your references, but not scoreable.
Okay, great.
And your referees can be international. Like for me, my PhD boss who was in India was also a referee. And also your advisory council, you can have someone from outside. Like I had someone from Europe on my advisory council. So you can always have that. Mhm.
Yes, so that was going to be my next question. So now that we know how it is scored, and you mentioned that referees you can choose, and you mentioned there is an advisory council of 5 people or three. You said three.
You can go up to many as you want, but
Okay.
there's a rule of thumb that you choose your advisory committee depending on your aims. Like I was always told that, let's say if you have three aims of your K99 slash the R00 part, like total three aims, then each of the aims, whatever your topic is, the someone should be like who's expert in those,
Yeah.
and you
Okay.
can like follow it back like, hey, my aim is, let's say, single cell sequencing. I will be advised by so and so in so and so institutes. He has published everything about that, or he's the discoverer, let's say, of
Yeah.
single cell sequencing, this particular platform, and he will be my advisor. And in the candidate section they will match it up and say, I will be meeting him every 6 months, blah blah blah. So it matches. There should be an alignment of that thing.
Okay.
Similar to aim 2 and aim 3. You should like choose your advisors based on the topic of your aims or based on the whole project what you're setting it up.
Okay.
So let's say if you're working on aging, you should have someone, an aging guy or a person or a woman who is a leader in aging, an expert in that field, something like that. That's
Okay.
what I was told.
So
Yeah, I
your
think
So
like
Divya,
advisory council
I
is
think these are like very they're not very defined rules that you have to have this many. It's more on like you can just discuss with your PO. Like I feel like your PO should be like your first point of contact for any question that you might have.
Mhm.
And of course, POs are also very busy, so sometimes they outsource it to someone else. So for in my case, my PO like gave me a contact of two more people at NIAID whom I was like discussing and talking with. So for example, when I first submitted my proposal, like my first submission, I got a score of 40. It was discussed, but it was like 40. So it was like basically four because, like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a score of four. So it was not a great score because, four was never going to get funded. I knew. So what gets funded is approximately anything 20 and below. Like that's the rule of thumb. Sometimes, that's not always the case, but like mostly if you are 20 or below, they say that, you have a high chance of funding. So I knew 40 would not get funded. So at that time, my PO told me that, I was in the room when your grant was getting discussed and, you had very good comments. But I think the main thing was that, your institute has not had a K before. So they want some more people on your advisory council. So I got a couple of more people and basically I changed nothing. I only changed like a few words and a few questions in my next submission. I did not do any new experiments, nothing. And my score was 1.5 in the next one. So the perfect is 1 and my score was 1.5. So what I'm trying to say is that, it's always important to be in touch with your PO or your, or whoever he or she puts you in touch with,
Mhm.
because they are in the room when, these discussions are happening. So they know exactly what the reviewers want, right?
Great.
And if you kind of appease them, then that's it, you're done.
So
So I think that's very important, be in good terms with your PO. Like don't nag them, but be in good terms with them and like ask, questions that, are really important. Like don't ask them questions which are already there on the website. So I guess they get really nagged up on that. But yeah, do your homework well and ask relevant questions and like be in touch with your PO. I think that really, really helped me.
and the advisors are also the reference letter providers, or those are
No,
the different
no. So
people?
they told me
no.
clearly that your advisors cannot be your referees. So I
Okay.
had like all exclusive. I had two co-mentors, five advisory council, and five referees. So I had like 12 people who were like completely and mutually exclusive. And then my, of course, primary mentor.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, why I asked that, because so that the audience should understand how much preparation one has to do,
Yes.
reaching out to this 10, 12 people and getting all that material together and
Yes.
having all that be cohesive with your proposal, and each referee or each advisor choosing that with specific intent, very
Right.
specific intent that it's going to support your whole proposal or
Mm-hmm.
part in that proposal. So it's like a big jigsaw puzzle, and you're
Yes.
putting all these small pieces
Pieces
together
together.
to bring the picture out.
Yep.
So I want to
That is
highlight the
exactly
audience.
the
Yeah.
reason why 6 months is really necessary. Like, I think it's a solid time to arrange this. And also, you have to remember most advisors, I don't know for Divya, like how it worked for you. Like, they always agree. There is nothing like, some of them even like would like make you work with your secretary, but at the end of the day, you yourself are preparing all those letters on behalf of them because they don't know you. Let's say you reach out to a West Coast a professor who you know is a big shot, but they don't know who you are and they don't care also. So if you want them, you better write your own letter, and then they will just put that in their letterhead. That's all they do. So this is in fact for all, maybe apart from your referees. Well, my referees also asked me to write the letters. That was a different thing, but mostly it is for advisors and your mentors and co-mentors. Basically, you are writing your own letter. So writing those huge letters, like for the advisories, it's all 1-page letter or a half page. But for your advisor, like mentor and co-mentor, you have to write almost like a 1.5 or 2 page. It's basically, there are like 6 pages, I think,
limit.
total.
Yeah, it's a 6-page limit.
Yeah, exactly. 6-page limit. So you can write total 3 pages on your mentor, co-mentor, and like beat the trumpet, like totally blow your trumpet, like do whatever you want, like write every good things you want, and have a letter presentable. So see, when you are writing 6-7 letters, that also makes it sound like repetitive. So that means in one day you're not writing all those letters, so space them out. So that also takes time. So that counts the part which you are not yours, but you have to do. You have to put that effort.
Right. Great. Yeah, that's a lot of preparation, and I'm very glad you are giving these all small details so that audience can understand the nuances of like where what and how much effort they need to put on all these things, and be very precise about that. So now let's come into the now you have mentioned about all these tricks and the tips about writing the proposal, writing the letters, getting them signed from the referees, advisors, mentors. Um, Once you get your K99, so what happens then? So everything happened, you submitted, it got scored, uh, and it's awarded. So what's now? What changes? What steps you need to take once you're awarded? What should be your timeline from then onward?
So, your academic route here in the US is pretty much like fall and spring. So there will be a set of advertisements for faculty positions in the fall and in the spring, but then each of them takes almost a year. Like if if you're applying in fall, mostly your interviews will go through March, April, and then you cannot start that fall. Technically, you're starting the next fall. So you can choose your own start date. That's totally fine. You can defer your start date, but it depends where you are standing in your
Carol.
postdoctoral. Sorry, is there anyone? Naman, do you have a question? Oh no, okay. I don't know why I see Naman. Okay, anyways, so you can apply immediately. You can start, let's say you got a K99 in June, and you can start if there are any advertisements to apply. You can apply that. And some med schools actually are rolling. And also you can reach out to chairs. There is no rule that you have to only stick to the advertisements for your applications. You can definitely reach out to any chairs of any departments in the schools anywhere in the US you're interested. You can write them like, hey, I got a K99, I just started. Do you think there is an advertisement? I'm interested in so and so. Usually your mentors wouldn't be very happy with that because you cannot just abruptly start. So take your time, discuss this with your mentor. This is the time you have to very much be in sync with your mentor and co-mentor, that they like the process of your application. My mentor was absolutely fine, so I started applying, but also it is not a great thing just to apply. And I will go back to what I quoted before. Midwest schools, it's a different rule. You have to choose and think for the schools you are planning for, East Coast or West Coast. Let's say Stanford, UCLA, Harvard, MIT. No. With K99 alone, there is no. You just don't apply. You are too early to apply in the market. Wait for your first postdoctoral paper. It doesn't have to have a CNS. I don't really believe that you should always think of CNS, but you should have one whole story completed, at least bio-archived. That is
Okay.
a good time to start. So it again depends like where you are standing. But on the other tiny thing, I really think when you get K99, at least you should start doing the homework because you know it takes a year. And so if you start applying in the first year of your K99, then in the second year of K99, you can be desperate and apply broadly. But in the
Okay.
first year, you can apply to more near and better, best schools you really want to go to, and you want to tell them that you are so good and so and so. So you should start the process depending on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And
Divya, did you start
Divya,
applying?
No, I mean,
yeah.
I just got my K99 in December. So I'm
Okay.
like, yeah, I'm still figuring out. So I spoke to my PO about this, and then he did tell me to kind of, give it 3 months because right now NIH rules are changing and everything. So he said, just, sit down and do your work and like submit papers and like, get your papers out and like wait for 3 months and then let's discuss again. Because he said, like, for him also, he was like, this is not the best time
Mhm.
to be applying, but in 3 months we hope that everything is gonna kind of settle down and like it like we'll have a new normal, we'll know like what we are looking at, and then that will be maybe a good time to apply. So that's what I'm currently doing. I'm just trying to get my papers together and like appeasing my boss because she's of course helped me so much through the process. So making sure that I kind of stitch up all the projects that I started and
Yeah.
like handing over things and everything. So I'm basically in that step. But yes, I think like for the faculty positions, like it's again like a whole new ball game, and like Upasna mentioned about it. And there are also some resources. I think there is a Slack channel which I just got to know about, and I'm just like kind of beginning to
Recently,
look into it. Like so again, that's also like a big process. I think the biggest thing is first you need to know where you want to stay. Like for example, like if you have like a family, if you have location constraints, then you kind of know, okay, I have to apply within this region. But if the entire US is open to you, then you really have to see where your work would kind of add value, or how you can basically sync with the other work happening in that department. So
Mhm.
I think it's a lot of thinking that's also what I'm doing right now. But then I mean I feel like it's a different ball game once you get a K99. It's the beginning. It's not the end.
yeah,
That's
I
what I
think this
realized.
needs definitely another session,
Okay.
application process, like how to think, what to prepare. This is totally another,
Another
yeah,
Yeah.
base,
zone.
another base to discuss. Okay, great. That means we can have another mentor mantra session with both of you after a few more months to talk about this. Awesome. Uh, I'm just happy that you're providing so much information, all these aspects, because I don't know a lot of like in the STEMPers community, there are a lot of international postdocs, and a lot of them are very new to how NIH works, what are things that get scored, how should the timeline be, and what are different parts. So I'm very sure that those who are new to this whole process can appreciate the in-depth information that you both are giving. um, well, one question I have, and I'm not sure if there is a very right answer to that, or if that's even like out there. How many K99 are awarded every year or every session? Is there a specific number, or is there like it depends on money available to NIH? Can you both talk about that?
Yeah, so every institute is very different.
Mhm.
It's so K99, the awards, releasing the awards also is so if it is the last academic year, let's say fiscal year is ending, then they have more money, then they will, so that particular months will have a lot of K99. Usually what happens is like June is that time, so people who are waiting to hear around June, like let's say applied in last June and then will be waiting for another June, that's a great time because lot of money accumulates and then they have to
Use it.
dispatch those ones. So there will be more awards, not only Ks, but also for any NIH grant. That's the thing.
Mhm.
However, for K99 particularly, every institute has very, very restricted numbers. I think 4 or 5 I have seen. If you look into NIH grant reporter, You can see per year, per institute, it is mostly 5. That's what I have seen. Maybe NCI is different because NCI also have a program, something called early K99. That's within 2 years of your postdoc. So people here, whoever is also working on cancer or is thinking about something in cancer, do target for early K99 because that doesn't require paper at all. They do not even, no reviewer will ever challenge you saying, hey, you don't have a first author publication from your postdoc. No, you cannot have in 2 years unless you're a bioinformatician. So do take advantage of the early K99, and it's also equally super prestigious, but it is only from NCI. So that's the only institute. Now, other institutes usually also cap it with the score, so that also makes it hard. But if, let's say, the PO really liked the candidate and the reviewers were very good, but that year their capping was in 16, score 16, so that candidate would not get funded, but that candidate might get funded in the next cycle. So that has also happened. Yeah, you can be in touch with the PO and it gets awarded in the next cycle. So that's very wishy-washy kind of thing. It goes sometimes here and there, but also many institutes doesn't have a cap. Like NIDDK doesn't have a cap for K99 scoring. So every year they are different. Some year they will give out for 36 also, and some year 19 also is like hard for them to fund. So it's every year it's depend. Okay. Yeah. So those institutes are also a little tricky, but more or less that's how it works.
Divya, what's your
I think
experience with your
what
institute?
Upasana said is absolutely correct. And again, a lot depends on your PO. So if your PO really, really liked your grant or liked how the reviewers judged it. Like for example, for me, my PO told me that okay, even if the grant doesn't come in December, your score is valid till next September. So there is a chance that I mean because my eligibility ran out, like I could not have reapplied. But he said you don't have to reapply, but your score is gonna stay valid like till next fiscal year. So, even if it doesn't get funded now, there is a chance that it will get funded, in the coming cycle. So, like, don't lose hope. And like I guess most institutes don't have a pay line for K99. So, a pay line basically means is a cutoff like of the score, like R01s and all these grants have a pay line. Like for NIAID, we don't have a pay line for K99. So, it can also, like she said, a grant which is 30 might also get funded. A grant which is 10 might also not get funded, because like when I got a 15, everyone was like, oh, this is going to get funded. But then it again took so long for the entire process to happen. And I like, with the change in administration and everything, I had almost given up hope. But, it just came in the nick of time. End of December, it just came through. So yeah, just be like, just be persuasive, talk to your PO, because he or she is going to give you the exact picture of how your grant is being reviewed and, how everyone is looking at your grant. So I think that is super important. And I was thinking of one more thing, which I forgot. But yeah, I mean, I think start early. That's of course very important. Yes. So what I was thinking was like she mentioned about papers. Like a lot of people think that I have to have a cell nature science to apply for such a prestigious award. So that's not really true. What they're looking for is that you've consistently performed, like for the last 10 years of your academic career, like from your PhD, postdoc, whatever. You have been consistently performing. Like every 2 to 3 years you have a paper, and which is not like a junk paper, but it is something like which has stood in the field and which has been cited, which has been used by people. So, for example, like I had 3 papers, but they were again not in like great journals. But I think the reviewers acknowledge the fact that, like the field I work in, like it's a very niche field, and these papers don't come out in Cell Nature Science. So they kind of acknowledge that, and like so it's not really important for you to have like big publications. What they're looking for is consistency in your publications, consistency in your science, and like what you're talking makes sense, what you want to do makes sense, and it will add to the field. What I also realized on talking to my PO is that they do not like grants which say that okay, I'm going to do proteomics. they don't want to look at things like, of course, proteomics is a great tool, but then you also have to say, okay, exactly why do you want to do proteomics? Like, what is your target? You cannot just say, I'm going to do a global mining of stuff, which is, of course, very informative. But for a K99, they really want that you know exactly what you're going after. Of course, it might work or not work, but they really want to know exactly, want to know that you know what you're going after.
Okay.
So I think that was super important, like when I was applying, like because a part of my study had like, a big data set. So, I paid very special attention to the fact that I'm, telling them that, okay, this is what I'm looking after and this is why I'm doing this big data set. It is not just to, generate a lot of data. So yeah, that kind of is important when you're applying.
Yeah, for any NIH grants, even for R01s, NIH loves 1 plus 1 is equal to 2 or 2 plus 1 is equal to 3. They like a question and an answer, like a hypothesis driven thing. And especially for K99, because it's like the K99 part is mentored, you should have like, yeah, that's actually very true. You cannot just throw in, oh, we'll be doing this. You can do that, but what exactly are you looking for? It should be mentioned in your like approach or your expectations. And also, NIH grants have a very nice format. Try to maintain with that flow. It really helps. Like you can look up into any NIH grants, funded grants, and like that's the way how it should work.
Okay.
So yeah, that's like very important. And yeah, as Divya was saying, productivity is the word. It's very important. You should be productive. How doesn't matter. You could have patents, you could have paper, you can have, something coming out in the social message. Like many people have worked probably in the COVID era, which might not have come up into like great journals, or maybe yes, but could have given some kind of a social message. That should be also accounted for. Your PhD, your master's, everything matters here. Up till now is a sign of your production or productivity. Yeah, and CNS definitely it's not a thing. I know, Divya, like many people actually have said like, oh, you have to have a paper or at least CNS to have K19. I'm like, that's BS. Like, no, that's not at all true. Like,
Okay.
but yeah,
Good
it
to
is
know.
maybe some mentors like, put this thing in your head that, oh, if you don't have a paper, you cannot even apply for K99. And I've seen that even in very big institutes like around us also, like most old school PIs will be like, oh, you just don't waste your time in K99 because you don't have even a paper yet. I'm
Okay.
like, that's not
Great, great.
K99 all about. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Very good to know. And I think so coming back to more questions, there are a lot of questions in the chat, and I saw already
Yeah,
Upasana,
I have
you
been
have been
actually answering
answering them
almost like
there.
everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
But let me take a look now here if there are any questions that are pertinent, make sense. Um, First question from Ricardo. What do you think about getting F32 before K99? Do you want to
Yeah.
talk about
To
that?
that answer, you can have any grants as long as nothing is overlapping your K99, it's fine. But if it's something overlapping, then you have to give up on something. But F32, again, remember, it's only, I think, for Americans or
Mhm.
green card.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
right?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
I mean, again, most of you here might already have green card or something. So K99 is not the only thing. Then you guys also have K22. Please look up for K22. That's not a mentored phase. That's exactly launching you out. So do apply for that. And of course, R21. There could be R21 also you can apply.
I think take some time to look at the NIH website and the funding
Yes.
opportunity announcement. It's called FOA. So each institute would, announce what funding they have available in each cycle, and like it's like a big, it's like a big flow of what they want. But if you start reading it, you'll kind of understand the process more. I think just understanding the process and how NIH works also, might take you a week or two, just to kind of appreciate how it happens. So a good place to start is just to go to the NIH website and just like fiddle around and look around. What There's something called NIH Reporter, and you have like different tools that NIH has within its website, and it's like a good place to kind of start looking at how this entire big institute functions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. You both have been awesome at answering questions, talking here as well as answering questions on the chat there. And I see Upasna has already so many questions. So I'm talking to audience now. If you have more questions, put them in the chat or raise your hand so that I can unmute you and you can ask the questions directly. In the meanwhile, I'm going to ask you both, um, is there something online available where someone can look at some of the funded, awarded K99 proposals? Is there,
So,
can you reach out
not
to someone and
Yeah, so
Oh,
not all institutes have it, but I did see when I was applying, NIA, National Institute of Aging, has two applications which are online,
Mhm.
both their initial application and the resubmission. So always remember in a K99, like at least I have never heard that anyone has got it in one submission. I've always heard that people had to apply twice. So keep that in mind. And you cannot apply in consecutive cycles because your score doesn't come back in time for you to apply in the next cycle. So you have to wait at least one cycle. So like I applied in June, I could not apply in October. I applied in February again. So
Okay.
always keep that in mind. Um, so yeah, so I mean, those two applications, of course, they are not of your field, like if you're not from aging field, but they were really helpful, in kind of for me to kind of set up everything and to see, what they exactly want. So I think yeah, it's a PDF which is uploaded. So yes, please do look at it.
Great. Okay.
And
Soumya.
H1B holders are eligible. Yes,
Okay.
yeah, I
was
just wrote
my
any internationals, like
any international.
K99, everyone can apply. That's why it is the best thing for internationals.
Mhm.
But however, I mean, I know today's session is K99, but please check for others. Like there are many other grants. Like if you are in Massachusetts, you have something called Charles Trust. If you are not in Massachusetts, if you're in rest of the country, there are others like Life Science Research Fellowship, which is within 5 years of your PhD. It's very prestigious, a good money, even more money than K99, but doesn't have an allocated money for your uh, new lab. So this is the only difference. K99 is only the transition grant, I know, but there is Hannah Gray, there is also Helen Whitney. So please apply for all the HHMI associated. If any of you are in HHMI lab, that's a great thing because usually HHMI fundings goes to HHMI labs. That's what I have seen so far. A very hitch in the system, but that's the glitch we have to take up into. But if you guys are in HHMI labs, do apply for Hannah Gray and for Helen Whitney.
Make a
Yeah,
note, audience,
it's
of all
pretty
these
and
different
very
grants.
yeah, and they're very, and actually do look out for your university and institute emails. They would always keep you like up and running for different advertisements and deadlines approaching. And you should put it in your calendar 1 year before so that you can prepare on that.
Great. Soumya, is that correct? You raised your hand
Yes,
for a question. Go
yes,
ahead.
you're correct. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you, Deva and Upasana, for yes, this is yeah, I probably can't thank you enough for putting this informational session. So yeah, I'm Shomi. I'm a postdoc in right now. Just started my postdoc in University of Missouri, Columbia. I have two quick questions for both of you. So regarding that overlap that Upasana was emphasizing on, I am like, does the application process don't have like a declaration page where we declared like this much of thing? Because I'm just asking because my plan was to carry forward my like postdoc project to the K99, so it's gonna be a continuation. So I'm like, how do you feel about that? If there is like a logical progression of that project, and which is obviously separate from my mentor's lab's ongoing project. Like, is this totally no, or there is a like a wiggle room? And then I will have another follow-up question. So yeah, if you can just elaborate on this, and then I will
Yeah.
go.
So the overlap I was mentioning was like on grant basis, like you shouldn't have any overlap of your grant. But for the research, it is totally up to you and your mentor. If he agrees, you can take a project, your postdoctoral project with you. That's up to him and you. However, usually when you write a K99, doesn't matter your postdoctoral mentor, whatever he has said, you should look up what is there in the NIH grant, or you should look up whatever R01s he have. Your title of your K99 cannot be the same as your mentor's R01. even if the material inside is pretty much, mix and match, the title, first thing, you should make sure the title is not the same. Look out for keywords. Do not have a title of your K99 which is almost the same keywords as his R01. That's a first dinging. You will get a red flag. Second, definitely you have to have separation from your mentor. But we do science. It's not possible to have X and Y or something very different. It should be a continuation, and you can write it in your candidate section. You can actually mention that my mentor's lab has been focusing on this, but I'm interested in this because this is my preliminary finding, which is what in my postdoc, and that's why I'm asking this question in my K99, and that will be followed by a question X in my R00 phase.
Yeah, and
So
then just make sure
some
that your PI is on the same page. I think that's very important.
but massage in the words and the language what you're using. But yeah, you definitely have to talk it out with your mentor. You cannot do anything behind your
Yeah.
mentor.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And then I will have another question. It's probably pertinent to my own situation. I don't know if you guys have faced that or not. So as the K99 phase or any kind of, as it's a like training fellowship, if we are talking about pre-doc and post-doc fellowship, and then coming to the K99, which is like a substantial part is mentored, I'm like, how much weightage they give to the mentor? I'm talking about mainly the seniority of your primary mentor. So I don't know if you guys work with who is like a tenure track
I
assistant
know
professor.
someone whose PI was an assistant professor when he applied, and he's also on STEM peers. But it's like I said, so what he did was, which was very smart, he got like heavyweight co-mentors with him. So like his co-mentors were people who were, stalwarts in the field. So I think if your mentor is not someone who's been around for a long time, or who's an assistant professor, or who's not so well known for his or her work, you can always get a team of co-mentors who are more known, who are kind of more known in the field and stuff. So yeah, you can always do that.
So you kind of balance it out with like if there
Exactly.
is something
Yes.
that you
Yeah. So
feel
if you
is
know, like for example, I knew my institute was not very strong, so that's why I got people from Europe or from other institutes which were stronger on my advisory council. So it's basically just how you kind of balance it all out. You know that you're gonna be marked on or whatever, scored on these things. So you just have to have that in your mind and then apply. And like one important thing I want to mention before we close out is that, like for example, when I was applying for my K99, my PI was also applying for a grant, for a PO1 grant, and she said that she wanted to put me as a co-investigator, and thankfully she didn't. And I checked with my PO again, so you cannot be a co-investigator or like co-PI or anything on any other NIH grant before you get a K99, because then you lose your eligibility of being an early career researcher. Then you're no more an early
Yes.
career researcher. You already are a part of a grant. So make sure that you're
Yeah.
not part of any big NIH grants, and always run it through a PO. If you're getting like a trust grant or any other grant, always make sure you check with your PO before you accept anything else, any other funding.
okay. So before accept,
Yeah.
before awarding, if it is already submitted, not discussed, not awarded, is that still okay?
I think that's a
Yeah,
gray area. You
fine.
Gray
have to
area?
give up something, but yeah, you cannot accept a
Yeah,
K99
you have
if
to
you've
only
already
give up if
accepted.
you are,
Yeah.
if you're only in a collapse. Like I had several other fundings, like,
Mhm.
and I almost finished those fundings. So if there is no overlap, you're absolutely fine. Like you can have EMBO, you can have Human Frontiers, you can have LSRF, but if your LSRF is in the last year, then you just give up your LSRF last 2 years and you start your K99.
Yeah.
But if you got a Hannah Gray and a K99, choose whatever you want.
Okay.
That's up to you. Think which one is better, because K99 and Hannah Gray, these are like the pathway, but the other ones are not. Other ones are only postdoctoral fellowships. So usually fellowships, you should choose, finish, done, and that's it. Move on to K99.
Great.
So yeah. Another quick thing before I was like finishing, and Divya was mentioning her advisor being Europe. Remember, there is a justification, an international justification in the K99 part. So usually POs would say avoid that. But if you don't have any other option, then you definitely can put that. But try to find people from US. That's what over the years, like also my peers have mentioned, like they prefer that way. But yeah, if you really don't have, then definitely
I think your
you can
PO is your
reach.
best friend.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Great.
all
Then
throughout unless NIH has some problem like which you are seeing.
There was
Yeah.
question from Naman, and it looks like Upasna already answered that question here as well. Naman's question is applying K99 if I'm not eligible for resubmission. I'm just reading that for all other audience,
Yes.
as it will be past my 4-year time. And Upasna answered yes, apply. If you have green card, then apply to K22 as well. Okay, great.
I think writing a grant itself is a big experience.
Mhm.
So you might or might not get a K99. You might or might not get a foundation grant, but just writing part is a great experience. I feel like it gives you a lot of perspective on what NIH needs or what grant agencies would need. And you might not get the first grant you apply, but then you know that okay, I can do it. I know how to do it. And like the first grant, maybe you wrote in 6 months. The next grant you will write in 4 months. So you keep getting better at that.
Okay.
And I guess that's what the academic career is all about. You won't
And
always,
you can
get.
repackage them.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I feel like it's an experience. And like if you're PI and everyone is on board, then definitely, it's worth experiencing how to, get everything together and, showcase yourself as a person
Yeah,
who can stay in
especially with
academia. Yes.
budget, your grant manager with the budget part and everything. This is like a wholesome experience. And
Mhm.
also, I think a recommendation is before you jump into writing K99, a best practice is ask your PI if he or she is writing an R01. Do get involved in that R01. That would help you with the science part, the specific aims page part, and everything except the candidate section. And also, you should all have BioSketch ready by this time.
Yeah.
Don't wait for anything. That's a must for any NIH grant.
And
So-
reach out to us on LinkedIn. Like I'm very available on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and like I'm happy to talk to people who are. I mean, I've already spoken to a lot of people after my post, and I'm happy to talk to more people. So yeah, so
Yeah.
LinkedIn is the best way to connect to me. So yeah, please like reach out, and I'm gonna
Find
help
me
as
where.
much as I can. Yes.
Exactly. And also, like, people don't feel shy, like asking the whole package.
Mhm.
I did get help from people with whole package. Happy to share my package. It's already funded. There's nothing getting scooped or anyway except the R00 part, but that's absolutely fine. So whoever is like on the hook of like and really seriously thinking, like I'm really happy to share my package
Yeah.
and help anyway, like reviewing. And there are also like there are a lot of people like who are part of also STEM pairs. I don't know anyone here, but we do offer also reviewing, not a service. I wouldn't call that a service. It's a friendly service. So we don't charge, but yeah, we do review each other's package and stuff before you submit and give
That's great to
opinions.
know.
So
So-
because mentors always wouldn't have that time. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we can keep talking about this whole topic. There will be a lot more questions. There is a lot to share because this is a very long process. Even the whole one day won't be enough. But we are at the 1 hour mark, and I don't want to impose a lot more like time on anybody's schedule. I know weekends are very special for all of us, especially in the science field. We work so hard from Monday, Friday. Even somebody, I'm sure someone has to go to lab and change the media or do something. Pretty sure. So before we close the session, I just want to summarize in 2-3 sentences what I have understood. Uh, First and foremost, find out the PO of the institute that you want to apply to. Be friend with that PO. Nurture that relationship because you're going to talk with that PO, communicate, maybe email, maybe phone, over long period of time until the award you get the award. So being in good relationship with that PO is very essential to get all this pertinent information from that person, and starting early thinking about this whole process which you both have outlined very excellently. With that, I'm really, really happy and thankful to both of you for coming today and talking to STEM Peers community. And of course, I'm going to share this recording on STEM Peers social media channels. So and people can ask questions there. And whenever you both get chance, feel free to answer those questions there. And I'm sure you will get a lot of questions now. But whenever you have time, please help them when as much as you possible answering those questions.
Thanks so
Thank you
much.
so much, both of
Yes.
you. Thank you so much.
you.
Upasna,
Yeah.
have a nice weekend. It's sunny here. All right, take care. Bye. I'm going to stop
Bye.
recording.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.